What's up, everybody? Welcome to Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric Hobbs, and today we're going to preview the St. Louis Blues as they get ready to kick off the 2022 to 2023 season. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Guys, it's hockey season now, and it feels like it's been forever. It also feels like 10 minutes ago that the season ended. The Blues are in. It's kind of a weird time, I think, for the Blues. You look in the not too distant future, and there might be major changes. So, in one sense, this season could be a bit of a last hurrah. On the other hand, it could just be the first step towards major transition. In terms of how the Blues are going to fare, they make no mistake, they're one of the better teams in the Western Conference. I would say at the end of last season, they looked like the second best team in the Western Conference. I mean, they were the only team to beat the Colorado Avalanche prior to the Stanley Cup Finals. Colorado just steamrolled their way in the first round and in the conference finals. And while, the Blues certainly could have played better, they made Colorado work to advance. And I think that's where you have to start with the Blues. Is the fact they're pretty good, but let's face it, Colorado's right there in the way of so many of the goals that the Blues have. And that's a big problem and a big challenge for the Blues. In terms of how they're going to perform this season, I think really there's 5 questions that you can look at. And the first one is, can Jordan Binnington play like he did in the postseason? When you look at Jordan Binnington, I think a lot of fans immediately expect him to always play like he did during the 2019 season, in the magical Stanley Cup run. I think that's the best we're ever going to see out of him. That said, he is capable of being all-star caliber. We saw that in the postseason. Even after Ville Husso was the best goalie on the team for chunks of the regular season, Ville Husso started in the postseason. Once he couldn't cut it, Jordan Binnington came in, and it was vintage Binnington. He was lights out as much as he could possibly be. If he can be that or close to it for the entire season, that's a big feather in the Blues' cap in terms of trying to close the gap between them and the Avalanche to challenge for the Central Division. Along those same lines, when you're looking at goalie, you have to look at Thomas Greiss. He is the new backup. Remember, Ville Husso is now part of the Detroit Red Wings. Charlie Lindgren, he's on the Washington Capitals. So, Thomas Greiss, is he going to be an adequate backup? And when we say adequate, I think you have to talk about a guy who can play at least 15 games, maybe even a bit more, and be competent and not just be a free 3 or 4 goals for the opposing team. So that's a challenge. It's something that, frankly, he's not really shown in his career. And he's going to turn 37 years old this season. So, boy, maybe it's a short-term fix. For this season, it could work, I guess. I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical. I get the feeling that the Blues are going to have to lean on Jordan Binnington, for better or for worse, more than in previous seasons. And if Binnington goes back to how he was in the regular season a year ago, that could be a big problem for the Blues, just goaltending overall. The third question, how do you replace David Perron? There was a time when he looked like the best player on the team last season. He ended up with 27 goals and 30 assists, 57 points. That has to be accounted for. And there really weren't any major additions that you can point to that make you think right there. That's where the Blues are going to account for the loss of David Perron. So, what do you do? I don't know. I guess next man up. Everybody has to step it up. That sounds great, But the fact is, you cannot assume every single player is going to play better. That's not a fair assessment to make or expectation to have. So I think that's going to be a challenge for the Blues. The next is Ian Barbashev. He's coming off a career year. He had, like 25 goals? I didn't look it up before filming. I should have. He had about 25 goals or something last year. One. Is that going to happen again? That was a career year, remember. So does he kind of revert back to being like a 10-goal scorer? Or has he turned a corner? The Blues have no real way of knowing. So that's going to be something that will have a huge impact on the Blues season. And also in terms of how you account for Perron, going back to the previous question. And, question 5. This is, as I said, perhaps the beginning of a transition for the Blues. What happens if this season does not get off to a strong start? What if the Blues are floating around, not really in contention for much of anything at the trading deadline? Vladimir Tarasenko is about to be an unrestricted free agent, and given the fact that he has been requesting a trade for more than a year, I see no reason to expect him to re-sign. Ryan O'Reilly, the captain, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. There might be massive changes in terms of just the faces of the franchise might be changing. The captain and the beloved goal scorer for 10 years or so, they both might be gone. If this team is not doing well, as I said, if they're floating around 500, not in playoff contention, they can be traded. Yeah, just try and get something for them, get some prospects, get some younger guys who are under club control for a little bit. I don't know. I think that's something to keep an eye on as well, because that if the Blues think they can win, they're going to go for it. But if it's not realistic for them to win anything, it only makes sense to do that, make those moves. I think this year overall for the Blues is going to be a small step back. I think they will be in contention for a playoff spot, if I were to guess. I don't see them being a significant challenger for the division, much less the Stanley Cup. At this point, I think success would be advancing to the second round of the playoffs. I think that's about the ceiling for this team. Given what I expect to be a step back in goaltending, I don't think that's going to work out as well as the Blues are expecting or hoping. I think Binnington's going to be okay, but I think they're going to ask so much out of him because I don't think Thomas Greiss is going to do a whole lot for the Blues. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if the Blues are scrambling to come up with a backup alternative by Christmas. But we'll see. If the Blues make it to 100 points, I'd be very impressed. That said, I don't think they'll be floating around down Chicago Blackhawks level of ineptitude, but I don't think they're a legitimate Stanley Cup contender this year. That's all I've got. Season's opens up on Saturday. They are the last team in the NHL to begin their season. Save the best for last. We'll see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong this season. Anyway, thanks for checking out this video. Keep an eye out for more analysis of the Cardinals as their season ended, more Mizzou football and Mizzou basketball. Thanks for checking out this video. See you guys next time.